This is Real Sports Talk, Rumack and the Greek, featuring Billy the Greek and Stormin Norman Rumack. Brought to you by the good people at Cosa and Carpets for Life.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Rumack and the Greek, or the Greek and Rumack, however you like it. And I'm Stormin Norm Rumack, and to my right, the one and only Billy Georgitsakis, the Greek, styling and profiling, getting set to to have a fun and interesting show talking about the NFL. And myself, Billy, we were all looking ahead to maybe it was going to be this year Bills and Cowboys. Didn't quite work out. So we got to talk about both those teams and what happened and what didn't happen. There are lots to talk about, that's for sure. All the NFL playoffs, and boy, it's been a year of surprises and unbelievable parity and unpredictability, and Billy will be the first to testify to that. So we've got all that coming your way, and of course, thanks to our great sponsors at COSA, Standardbred Horse Racing Association of Ontario, loyal sponsors to myself and to Billy, and of course, Nicky, the king of carpets, must be thrilled with his Habs with their surprising win over the Maple Leafs on the weekend. So for Nicky, we got to give him a little love. Okay, go Habs, go, Nick. You must be thrilled. Absolutely. Anyways, Nicky, the king of carpets, another loyal sponsor. We're grateful for him, and our great producer, Jordan LaRoche. All right, so Billy, look, I know you got a ton to say about the NFL playoffs, certainly about your beloved Cowboys and the Bills as well. I'll just make 2 points and you go at it. But I was talking off air with Jordan LaRoche, our producer, and it was like, to see San Francisco running so easily against the Cowboys, especially I guess it was the third quarter, it almost looked like there was hardly any effort. I mean, I don't want to go overboard and knock on the Cowboys, but that was one of the big surprises. You and I had talked about Purdy, and for a guy, 7th round pick, third string quarterback, to play as coolly and confidently as he did, remarkable. And as far as the Bills go, to see Stephon Diggs giving it big time to Josh Allen, towards the end of the game. I mean, boy, there's Bills have some band-aiding to do in the off season. Anyways, you take it from there, Billy, however, which way you want to go.
Okay, give me a sec. Thanks for tuning in, folks. Appreciate you coming on board. The express views of this program do not reflect rather the good people at the Central Ontario Standardbred Association, nor our good friend Nicky Borson Carpets for Life. This following segment and others down the road are intended for adult viewers only. Viewer discretion is advised.
All right, Billy.
Here's what I'll say.
Okay.
Here's what I'll say. I'll say, fuck you, Michael Gallup. Number one, fuck you, Michael Gallup. Number two, fuck you, Dakota Prescott. Fuck you, Mike McCarthy. Fuck you, Kellen Moore. And fuck you, Jerry Jones. You guys are a goddamn stinking disgrace. Norm Rumack, a stinking disgrace. I follow football. I've been, over the course of my life, both professionally and personally, been a Cowboy enthusiast. One of my first heartbreaks was the catch in 1982 with Montana over Too Tall Jones. So I've had a lot of suffering over the years. I've never in my lifetime watching a sporting event been more disgusted in my life. On one hand, I'm watching a club in San Francisco that's got a 7th round draft pick, 5 career starts. And here's the truth of the matter. If you put Brock goddamn friggin' Purdy on the Cowboys at $20 an hour, right? How much does he make? 25 an hour, 30, whatever. Peanuts, relatively speaking. If you put him in a Cowboy jersey and you put Dakota Prescott in a San Francisco jersey, that final score is 19-12 Cowboys. An absolute goddamn disgrace. And us long-suffering Cowboy fans got to not only put up with this now, but got to put up with this next year and the year after. It's about high time. And I'm getting to the point in time where I might just never watch a football game again. I might never watch sports again in my life, period. Frankly, I don't know. If we last next week and our sponsors haven't abandoned this, I'm going to petition the idea we turn this into a political program. Argue some conservative shit, liberalship, something else. I don't know. Anything but the goddamn friggin' Dallas Cowboys, Norm Rumack. Anything but the friggin' Dallas Cowboys. And I'll tell you this. There's only one thing that's worse than being a Dallas Cowboy fan. Only one thing worse. And that's being a Toronto Maple Leaf fan. And goddamn it, I'm both, Norm Rumack. I've had it up to here with this outfit.
All right. Okay. So if I can, I understand the raw emotion. I think that's how we all feel when we take our favorite team. And if they've played poorly or lack of effort or intelligence or all the above, I think we have the same feelings and we have different ways of expressing it. But if you don't mind, Billy, just into specifics, because, you're good at breaking down plays and one-on-ones and scheming. Why, if you can explain it, why was it so easy for San Francisco to get their running game going, especially in the third quarter? It's Dallas. It looked like it was just easy. Am I right?
No, you're not right, and I'm going to tell you why. For anybody that watched that football game, the Dallas defense was on the field practically, half the game, because your guy at quarterback can't run a drive. Your offensive coordinator's a bonehead. Your head coach is spending too much time at the buffet. Here's the issue. The Dallas Cowboy defense stepped up in a huge, huge way for the entirety of the first half and into the third quarter. Eventually, you're going to get a little bit tired. Eventually, there's going to be holes. You got to keep that defense somewhat rested. You got to drive the football, and you got to capitalize on your opportunities. Not only was Dakota Prescott shit the bed in the biggest game of his life, this guy's making $46 million a year, and he's arguably, in my estimation, the sole reason this game ended in the way that it did. You got a guy in Mike McCarthy making bonehead calls. Give you a specific example. Number one, the game's tied at 6 going into halftime. Dallas is driving 2nd and 2 at the 20. All right? 2nd and 2 at the 20, and you get the ball to start off the second half. So you score, and then you get the ball on the other side of the break. Perfect scenario. What does this guy do? What does Kellen Moore do? 2nd and 2 at the 20 with a minute left. This guy calls a play, and Dakota throws the ball into double coverage. Interception. San Francisco goes down and scores 9-6. Furthermore, you got the game at 9-all. God damn it. You got the game at 9-all with 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. You're 4th and 5 at San Francisco's 40-yard line. All right. You have a decision to make. You're not kicking a field goal. So what do? You punt the ball and you back San Francisco up to the 10-yard line. Okay, fine. What that tells me, Norm Rumack, is McCarthy, in his infinite wisdom, has confidence in his defense. All right? If you have confidence in your defense, you fat potato head, why don't you go for it, 4th and 5, and a chance to score? You're not going to get into San Francisco territory all the time. You had a shot right there. You shit the bed, and then San Francisco goes down and rams it down your throat. A disgusting display by all concerned. You got Zeke Elliott making God knows how much money, man. God knows how much money. And that's the performance in the biggest game of your life that you bring to the table. Michael Gallup, you make $10+ million a year. 0 catches. You had 1 target, and you gave up. You didn't come back to the ball. You gave up an interception, or you were part of that interception. Where else can I go? Where else? Tell me, as a Dallas Cowboy guy, where else can I go? It's disgusting, and it happens year in, year out, and we're fed up with it. If Dakota Prescott's the quarterback of this Cowboy team next year, I'm turning to the Eagles, man. I'm going to be an Eagle fan at the age of 50.
Okay. So, Billy, let me ask you this. Just if you can.
Hold on. How's my hair? Did it get out of place?
Maybe that Cowboys game helped you make you look really good, Billy. I don't know. It looked like you took some weight off your face. I don't know. You tell me. Anyway,
go on.
In all seriousness, okay, let's play fantasy league. You're the owner. You've taken the team over from Jerry. If you remove all emotion from it, obviously a horrible outcome, and for some of the reasons or all the reasons you highlighted, and another playoff disappointment for the Cowboys. Is it a rebuild or just a retool this team needs?
You need, and we'll get into the Buffalo Bills a little bit later, you need a general at the quarterback spot that does not make mistakes in the biggest of moments. You had a kid in Brock Purdy in his 6th career start. He wasn't unbelievable. He wasn't lights out. He was efficient. And here's one thing he didn't do. He didn't turn the ball over. Dak Prescott is continuously turning the ball over every game, twice a game. And in a game that the margins are razor thin between opposition, between San Francisco and Dallas, razor thin. 1-2 mistakes will kill you. And Dakota Prescott not only makes those mistakes, but he doesn't make enough big plays to compensate for it. So for me, it's time. I've tried to give this guy the benefit of the doubt in the best way that I could. No more. There's no more time, man. There's no more time. You had the game on a silver platter there, and you shit the bed. You had the game on a silver platter, and it starts from there. I don't care if he's got $40 million in dead cap money. I need somebody that's going to manage that game and put me in the best position to win, especially when my defense is the best defense the Dallas Cowboys have shown since the glory days in the mid-'90s. The defense shut San Francisco down, and there's absolutely no excuse Dallas Cowboys do not win that game except for Dakota Prescott. He's got to go. He's got to go. And Kellen Moore's got to go with him. Egregious play calling across the board, and it's been the issue in terms of lack of playoff success, not only this year, but years prior to it.
Okay. So again, removing all emotion, let's say, okay, you go with that decision. Dak Prescott in your man. What quarterback, Billy, can you get to slot in there? Or are you looking at, getting a good or a great college kid who you groom for a little? Like, how do you do that if you're completely convinced that Dak isn't the guy to get the job done anymore?
Let me tell you, first of all, let me tell you this, that if Tony Romo, who's retired now, three years ago retired, if Tony Romo came out of the booth, out of the commentator's booth, and took a helicopter from Buffalo and landed at Candlestick with about 5 minutes left in the second quarter, and suited up, Dallas wins that football game. You got Aaron Rodgers that's played his last game in Green Bay. You got Tom Brady that's played his last game in Tampa Bay. You have Derek Carr that's been jettisoned out of Las Vegas. Any of those three would be better. Cooper Rush, the backup, would be better. Anybody would be better than this guy. And the thing that I'll say, just in the 1 in a million chance that this guy hears this, let me tell you this, number one, as a man, as a human being, you are top of the line, man. You are beyond reproach. Some of the things you've been through, some of the stuff you stand for. I love you as a man. I love you to death as a man. I've supported you till now. No more, man. No more. This is straight business. We want a championship. Cowboy Nation wants a championship. And the fact is, if you can't beat Brock Purdy and your defense hold San Francisco to 1 touchdown and 4 field goals, and you can't get that job done, you will never get the job done.
Okay. So, I don't know. You'd have a better read on Jerry Jones' mind. Is Mr. Payton, is Jerry already talking to Payton about taking over the head coaching reins? What do you think is going on behind the scenes?
Look, the question you got to ask yourself, like any organization, you got to put yourself in the best possibility, in the best positions to win. Mike McCarthy, historically, and as evidence over the weekend, has had a questionable record in terms of game management, in terms of schematics, in terms of play calling, in terms of stuff like that. Mike McCarthy was one of the reasons, again, that fired from Green Bay, because obviously he came to Dallas with issues. So the question you got to ask yourself, if you're a Dallas Cowboy fan, can you win with the same cast of characters, much like the Leafs? We'll get into it. Can you repeat history and bring back the same cast of characters next year and hope for different results? Can you realistically do that? I'd argue that you had a chance last year. You had a home game against San Francisco last year in Arlington. You came up short. You killed yourself with penalties, with turnovers, with stupidity. A year later, you bring the same cast of characters against San Francisco again, and you lose. And you ask yourself again, hold on. Is San Francisco the better team? Are they the better team? Player for player, position for, are they the better team? I tell you, the answer is no. So if the answer is no, and you're losing, and you're not losing to a better club on paper, then what is the issue, Norm Rumack? It's got to be the brains behind the operation. What was Dallas' strongest unit this Sunday and for the better part of the season? Their defense. Their defense held that fine. What were the other issues? The offensive line. They didn't call Bosa's name once throughout the game. Prescott had all day back there. And you still can't get the job done. You can't get the job done. It's not like your offensive line left you to the wolves, right? They protected you. 1 sack against, and he sat in the pocket all day. So you couldn't get the job done. You had excuse me, I'm losing my voice here. You had Gallup, the invisible Gallup. So you let Amari Cooper go. You didn't want to pay him. You retained Gallup coming off an ACL injury. He's 10 yards open in the fourth quarter to score a touchdown. Prescott can't get him the ball. Well, you tell me, Rumack, what do you want to do? You want to bring the same Leaf team back again and try to play Tampa Bay and hope the results are different? Or do you want to make changes? If I'm Jerry Jones, I get on the phone and I find out what it's going to take to get Aaron Rodgers behind center in Dallas for 2 years, man. 1 or 2 years. I find out how it's going to take to get Peyton on board. And I find me a couple of wide receivers. I do that. I give my team the best possibility to win. And he hasn't done that to this point in time, and he won't do that moving forward.
All right. Just before we move on to the Bills, who I'm sure are taking similar heat back home, but before we get on to them, is the feeling with the Cowboys Nation, if you have a read on it, at least on social media, are most of the Cowboys faithful talking exactly or similarly to what you're saying right now?
Otherwise, I told you, the opinions expressed in whatever fashion I do so is a representation of 95% of Cowboy Nation. We all saw the same game. We saw a defense, the likes of we haven't seen in 20 years. In 20 years, you talk about that first half, you talk about the first 3 quarters, everything the Cowboys did had an answer for San Francisco. You shut them down. You shut them down continuously. You are not responsible for the turnovers, the interceptions. You're not responsible for that. So obviously, when it comes down to it, there's one place that it all falls on, and that's Dakota Prescott. Plain and simple. Plain and simple. And it's come to a point in time where Jerry's going to have to make a tough decision. I don't know the salary cap ramifications, but this guy's got to go. He's got to go. He's got to go somewhere else because he's a mid-tier quarterback, and he plays with the mentality and the risk-taking that he thinks he's an upper-level guy. We don't need an upper-level guy. San Francisco just won with a kid that's got pimples on his face out of college, Mr. Irrelevant. And San Francisco won with the inferior team. So don't tell me we need Dak Prescott. You can win with anybody behind that center if your defense plays, as long as they don't make mistakes. And Dak Prescott's a walking mistake whenever he touches that pigskin.
All right. Okay. So let's move on to the Bills. It was fascinating for me to see Stephon Diggs given an earful to the franchise, Josh Allen, because, of course, he hardly got any passes. And, we had talked about the last 5-6 weeks, Josh with some careless plays, some picks, kind of like not looking like Josh MVP at the start of the season, kind of like Josh, pretty good or pretty damn good, but, we're seeing more flaws. So when you see one-star player tune out the franchise, like live on TV, there was nothing to hide there. I know the Bills had some injuries, but what team doesn't? So, we talked about that as well. But again, a playoff failure and disappointment for the Bills, for Bills Mafia. I can't imagine what it's like for them. Probably what it's like for you right now, too. So, even if I'm going overboard, when we see Diggs doing that to Josh Allen, are there larger issues within that team, or is that just a one-off? They lost, and then, people get heated when that happens.
You'd like to call it one-off. You'd like to say that you'd like to give Diggs the benefit of the doubt as being a competitor. You'd like to look at it and suggest that it's because the man cares, because the man's a competitor, as I mentioned, and wants to win. But when you look a little bit further, Stephon Diggs was not acquired as a model citizen in Minnesota, right? Part of the reason he left Minnesota was some of the antics that we saw on Sunday with Josh Allen, etc. Now, the question you got to ask yourself, you separate Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, and everybody else. Here's the one issue that comes to the fore. But the Buffalo football Bills, as mentioned when we had Sal Capaccio on a while back, and I kind of brought it up. I don't remember the exact response, but I said specifically that the one Achilles heel the Buffalo Bills have is their interior, the front seven, and their offensive line. The Buffalo football Bills got manhandled at the line of scrimmage. I'm talking about manhandled by a Cincinnati team playing 3 backup offensive linemen. You got a guy in Joe Mixon running for 115 yards. You know how many times Rumack ran over 100 the entire year? Once. You got a guy in Joe Burrow that's been sacked more than God knows who over the last 2 years, over 110 times over the last 2 years. You know how many times the Buffalo Bills touched him on Sunday? Maybe once, maybe twice. That guy didn't even have to take a shower after the game. So that's where the game was lost. I don't give a rat's ass who's your quarterback, who's on the outside. In football, when you get dominated to that degree on both sides of the ball at the line of scrimmage, that tells you exactly where the problem is. That's the exact game of football is the line of scrimmage, Norm. And the minute you get dominated there, man, you can't win a football game. It's impossible. It's impossible. And I'm not talking about Cincinnati had the edge up front. They dominated them. Josh Allen has no time to throw, and there's nobody that can run a football. What do you want the guy to do? What do you want the guy? He's not Superman. What do you want the guy to do? Whereas Joe Cool sits in the pocket, he's got 3 receivers and 10 seconds in the pocket to throw the ball. And if he doesn't want to throw the ball, Mixon's going for 7 yards a pop. How's Buffalo going to win like that? So if you're a Bills guy, all you got to do is just understand, unless your offensive line gets better and your front seven gets better, obviously big loss in Von Miller. But if your front seven doesn't get better and is not more stout against the run and can't get after a quarterback, and you can't protect your own, and you can't open up rings to run the ball, how do you expect to win? How do you expect to win at Lombardi? You can't do it. And they were exposed. Cincinnati's not that good. You saw the week before, a Baltimore defense had them dead to rights. They had them dead to rights. It's the same Cincinnati team that showed up. It just shows you how weak that Buffalo Bills interior offensive and defensive lines are. It's terrible. It's terrible. And that's, you don't got to look any further. It's not about Allen. It's not about Diggs. It's not about Singletary. It's not about anything else. It's about the 10 guys, the 10 guys on both sides of the line of scrimmage got dominated, manhandled.
Okay, so in other words, as the Bills do their postmortem, so from your perspective, there's no problem with the coaching. It's the player recruitment or the drafting, or am I barking up the right? In other words, you have no issues with the coaching, game calling, anything like that. Am I correct?
How could you? How could you have any kind of issues? What do you want a coach to do at that point in time? You can't run a football. You can't protect your guy. And you can't get to the other QB. How do you want to win? How? Give me any kind of feasible way you're going to win a football game if you can't do anything. Anything. The Bills got dominated in every aspect and every facet of the game. So what does that tell you? It doesn't tell you, you don't need a rocket scientist to understand. You got to address those issues, man. You got to be stout at the line of scrimmage. And if you don't win this line of scrimmage, that's fine. Josh can bail you out, but you got to compete at the line of scrimmage. This was as much of a mismatch as you've seen all year at the line of scrimmage in terms of 2 football clubs, and that's why Buffalo lost by 17. It's not complicated. And there's not a human being in the world that could have been a quarterback for the Buffalo football Bills that could win that game. And Josh Allen is as good as it gets. And there's no shot. He had no shot in hell to win that game.
Okay. Now, so Billy, if I'm not mistaken, I think at least going into the playoffs, you still felt, if I'm wrong, you'll correct me, pretty comfortable with the Bills having a good shot to get to the conference final and to the conference championship and maybe to the Super Bowl. I don't recall you saying, like, okay, I think on their line they look particularly vulnerable. You may have pointed out that could be a problem, but I don't think you had any lack of confidence about the Bills going into the postseason. Am I right or am I wrong?
Yes and no, but you got to understand, nobody, not myself, not not Sal, not anybody in Western New York could have imagined that you'd get manhandled to that degree. You saw Miami the week before, sack Josh Allen 7 times, and you kind of had your doubts. You said, wait a minute. But then you came to the realization Cincinnati's playing third stringers all over their offensive line. You can handle them. That's what any reasonable person would say. It's not your strong suit, but goddamn, we didn't believe that you would be that weak. Was it a one-off? Was it just a bad Sunday? I can't tell you that, man. But when the chips are down and you play like that, if you play like that when the chips are down, then at some point in time, that's where adjustments need to be made. So the Buffalo Bills and their front office has got to find a way to increase the productivity on both their offensive line and to get some guys that can stop the run, win at the line of scrimmage. And they don't have any of those guys. And the one guy they brought specifically for that was Von Miller, and you lost him to an ACL a few months ago, right? That's why he was brought in. He was brought in to rush the passer. And you saw Joe Burrow had all day back there. And if you give a quarterback of his caliber all day, Norm Rumack, he's going to pick you apart. And that's what we saw on Sunday in Orchard Park. And it's unfortunate for the Bills fans. Again, it's been a trying season. It's been, I don't know, Bills fans, Cowboy fans, Lee fans. We've been suffering for a lifetime. So it's all the same kind of pain. But in Dallas, it's different. In Dallas, we didn't get out physical. We didn't get outmatched. We didn't get dominated. We gave them the game. Whereas Buffalo really didn't give nothing. They just got manhandled. They got whipped. They got whipped like a school kid. That's it. So it's a big difference in pain between being a Buffalo guy and a Dallas guy today. Dallas gave them the game, whereas Cincinnati took the game from Buffalo.
Right. Okay. So pertaining to these issues on Buffalo's line, can these be fixed in one draft and one period, or is this takes longer than that?
You can absolutely in the NFL. There's no such thing as rebuilding anymore. You can retool on the fly with free agency, the offseason, drafting, and what have you. You need to obviously, and you're going to have Von Miller back next year. To what degree, and in terms of health and success, because he's not a spring chicken, you don't know. He'll be back. So you got to make decisions to bring in guys specifically for situations like that. You don't want to go into any kind of playoff game without the ability to compete at the line of scrimmage. And if you do so, your chances of winning are 1 in 10. They're 1 in 10. Burrow didn't make any mistakes. There was no turnovers. Cincinnati did absolutely nothing to inflict any kind of damage on him. And that's the only way that a Buffalo team would have a shot. When you're beat up front, you need to either be successful on special teams, come up with some big plays, a turnover, this, that, the other. Buffalo couldn't produce any of that, and the game was over for all intents and purposes right at 17-10 when Cincinnati went down and drove for a touchdown. Game was over. Feel sorry for Josh. Feel sorry for the Buffalo Bills Mafia. But again, it's not like you lost a heartbreaker and, you just got whipped. You just got whipped. 8 ways to Sunday, really? So at the end of the day, you can't be that sad. You just can't be mad. You just got to put your head down and say, listen, boys, we got to get better in the trenches. Or else, you know what? We're going to waste Josh Allen's prime years in a mode where there's no championship in Buffalo, really, at the end of the day. And if you guys in Buffalo got a problem with Josh Allen, I'll take him in Dallas. I'll take him in Dallas tomorrow. If Josh Allen's behind center for the Dallas Cowboys against San Francisco, Dallas wins 31-10 against San Francisco. It's that simple. It is really that simple.
Okay. All right. By the way,
are you paying attention? Don't get on my nerves, Norm, today. I'm in a foul mood, Norm Rumack. So no cheap shots. Don't ask me about my moisturizer cream, anything like that. Keep it strictly professional, Norm Rumack, because I'm ready to explode. This might be our last broadcast for, a little bit of cursing and swearing. So I'm going to calm down for the second half. Let's go to the Coastal Classic, and we'll touch base a little bit on what's to come in the NFL. We'll wrap up the Bills, and we'll talk a little Toronto Maple Leafs. See you on the other side.
One of the greatest trophies in the sport of harness racing, the Meadowlands Pace, our signature event at the Big M, 1.1 million line, and the gate is moving. A field of 9, 3-year-old Pacers at the post. They're all in behind the gate, and here they come for the start of the Meadowlands Pace. And they're off. Mucho Sleazy is under urging from Dave Miller from mid-pack. Some beach somewhere looking to protect position. Floats away there. Artificial to his outside. Bullville Powerful is 4 wide on the opening turn as Share the Delight shoots through. He's now racing in third. Sand Shooter gets away in sixth. Racing in seventh. Badlands Nitro. Atokia second last. Tis a Masterpiece. The trailer. Mucho Sleazy in front. Artificial up on the outside to challenge. Bullville Powerful is following him. The quarter in 26 seconds flat. And Some Beach Somewhere is tracking the cover of Bullville Powerful. He's second over on the outside, and they're rolling pretty good as Artificial takes the lead. But up on the outside, Bullville Powerful coming to call. He pokes ahead in front, and here comes the big horse, Some Beach Somewhere. He's 3 wide on the backstretch for Paul McDonnell. Mucho Sleazy is racing in fourth. Share the Delight 5 lengths further back fifth. 51-4. Amazing half here, and 3 wide, Some Beach Somewhere. He powers up now to take the lead as they move on to the far turn. Artificial is stretching him out, and now back in second. Mucho Sleazy racing in third. Bullville Powerful drops back on the outside. Share the Delight is fourth at the rail. Sand Shooter is racing in sixth. Then it's Badlands Nitro. Some Beach Somewhere was used very hard. He's under a hand drive. McDonnell shakes the lines at him. Artificial sticking right. 1:19-1. Some Beach Somewhere leads it by 2. Artificial tips to the outside, trying to get to him. An eighth of a mile away. Some Beach Somewhere under pressure. Artificial up to his wheel on the outside. Some Beach Somewhere full out. Artificial, a desperate lunge on the outside. Artificial, Some Beach Somewhere at the line. Artificial, 1:47. World record upset in the pace.
By now, you know the name COSA TV, an industry leader producing unique, high-quality digital content promoting harness racing in Ontario. Features, virtual programming, live events, and more. COSA TV has it covered. Follow our social media channels and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page to view the latest content. And if you're looking to bet your favorite Ontario track, check out hpibet.com. COSA TV, taking Ontario racing global.
Welcome to Carpets for Life. For over 30 years, we have been servicing both residential and commercial clients in the sales and installation of custom stair runners on wall-to-wall areas. Our team prides itself in honesty with a regard of professionalism and customer satisfaction. Our many testimonials and continuous referrals is a testament of the quality of workmanship we provide. We strive to ensure a happy customer is a Carpets for Life customer.
All right, thanks again to our great sponsors, both COSA, Standardbred Horse Racing Association. Wherever your favorite track is, go out there, have a good time. You'll have a great dining experience as well. They'll help you if you're inclined to wager, to have a better shot perhaps at picking the right driver and the right horse. And as far as Nicky goes, hey, great guy. He knows his stuff with carpets, and you know what he's...
Hold on.
What?
You know Nicky's hurt. He's a cowboy guy too, eh? Do you know that?
Well, okay, but at least, okay, well, you're right. He's taking a hit on the Cowboys, but Billy, as you know, he's a fan of Les Glorieux, Les Tricolores. He must have been thrilled after that Montreal victory over Toronto. Speaking of which, you know, Billy, you and I have had some more than 2 years now, lively discussions about Leafs when they have a bad game or a little bit of a bad stretch. And is it significant? Is it not? Does it really mean anything over the course of a long 82-game regular season? Does it have implications for the playoffs? Well, none of us really know for sure. We can only guess. But I'm taking it in terms of the Leafs losing. Now, clearly, no one can doubt Montreal is going through a rebuild. And at least I think they got the right guy behind the bench. Marty St. Louis, brilliant guy. I think he'll groom these young men and turn them into good players eventually, or at least the right work ethic, the right attitude, all that. But is this Leaf loss more frustrating for you than any individual losses we can pick out in the couple of years we've been doing this show? Is there something that bothers you more about this loss than some of the others?
Absolutely not, man. Absolutely not. If I'm going to get concerned about a Toronto Maple Leaf loss in mid-January, when they're firmly entrenched in the second spot in the division, they're basically playing Tampa Bay tomorrow, 2 months from now. You know who you're playing. If that's going to concern me, then I got big problems. I do got big problems, maybe psychological or otherwise. But that absolutely, Norm Rumack, minus zero concern about the Toronto Maple Leafs dropping a regular season game to the Montreal Canadiens. Because for you, as a guy that goes way back, you realize there's certain games against certain clubs where you can throw the standings out the window. Even back in a different time, even the Maple Leafs were at the bottom of the barrel. They play some of their best games in the Forum against some of the better Montreal competition. And that's just the way that is. You can throw records out the window. The Leafs can be the greatest thing since sliced bread. You go into the Forum or wherever they're calling it nowadays on a Saturday night, you know you're going to get Montreal's best. You just know it. And you know the game, for the most part, is going to get decided either late in regulation or in overtime. That's what's been going on for the last 5 years. And the next time they play, it'll happen again, right?
Well, who knows next time it'll happen again. But, I mean, that is an accurate point. When the Leafs, especially.
It's an accurate point. I just made it. What do you think? Thanks a lot. What do you think? I talk out of my ass here. Of course it's an accurate point, Norm Rumack.
No,
get your act together when you address the great one.
I was just recalling before you were able to watch the TV and stay up late. I'm talking about in the early 70s and the peak of the leading into the peak of the Ballard era, when the Leafs were rock bottom rebuilding and Montreal was dynastic, winning those 5 Scotty Bowman Stanley Cups. You're right about that, because I remember I watched those games, and even to his credit, the Habs play-by-play voice, the legendary, irreplaceable Danny Gallivan, he would actually go out of his way to kind of build up the Leafs a little bit, not falsely, but just say, hey, they've got a chance. It's the rivalry, et cetera. Even if they're not doing well in the standings, it's still a big game. And you're right. When the Leafs would go to the Forum, now it's the Bell Center, whatever, it's you're right. They would play maybe over their level of ability because it was a big game on national television, and it was in Montreal for some people, the mecca of hockey. Okay. And yeah, even when the Leafs were bad or terrible, they could still come up with a good effort and give Montreal their money's worth. And they had 2 playoffs with them in 78, 79. Montreal, one of its best teams ever. And even then, even though they went out in 4 games, the Leafs still put up a good fight. They were reasonably close games. So you're right about Leafs Montreal. They can throw away the standings. The rivalry sometimes takes it to another level. Sometimes.
Absolutely. So the question you got to ask yourself now, if you're a Leaf guy and you're a little over halfway through the season, bordering on 60% through the season. So you got to ask yourself, and looking forward again, more than likely going to face Tampa Bay. So I ask you, Norm, you're going more than likely into Tampa Bay series, and you're going in there again, right? And here's the thing that's going to happen, regardless of where you are in the standings and how much of a favor you should be. You're going into Tampa Bay, and here's the common denominator that hasn't changed. You're going into a club. Who's the best defenseman still amongst the 12 guys that are going to compete in that series?
Well, look, they've got some of the best players in the league up front.
So who's the best? Obviously, from a defensive perspective, the best guy from the whole lot of them, if you summed them in, was Hedman, correct?
Yeah,
by
absolutely.
far. All right. Who's the better goalie?
Well, that's not even a contest.
There you go, Vasilevsky. So Toronto's got a few players, but Tampa Bay's not chopped liver. So if you're a Toronto Maple Leaf fan and you go into the regular season, much like my Cowboys did, expecting different results, I believe the Leafs are in danger in this specific area. They've given Samsonov and Murray and the relative success. I think they've been lured into a false sense of security in terms of a solidified defense and goaltending spot because they've played good for 3 months. And as we saw, and again, I'll make the parallel to the Toronto Blue Jays. For June, July, and August, the Blue Jay bullpen had the best ERA in the bigs. And Atkins and Shapiro thought, okay, we got this under control. How'd the Blue Jays lose the last game of the season? Who imploded, Norm Rumack? The bullpen, right? So do you see a way where do you see a level of confidence, or would you address the goaltending issue moving forward as a kind of preemptive measure? if you're a Toronto Maple Leaf guy, or are you just going in with Murray and Samsonov and hoping they continue to play decent?
To answer your question, Billy, I think it goes back to the old saying, expression, or common thinking amongst, especially successful GMs, not about right now. The question should always be about every position: goaltending, defense, and your forwards. For any team that's got playoff possibilities or more than possibilities, the question is, can I do something at any position, at every position, to improve my team? Can I make a move that's going to make my team stronger? And that should be the only question. So can the Maple Leafs reasonably make their goalkeeping better in a transaction without weakening themselves? And part of the question, Billy, has to be, do you go for broke this year? And if you're Dubas, you might as well, because if you come up short, you're gone anyway. Dubas doesn't, if I'm right and you're right, and Dubas would be gone if the Leafs disappointed again, it's not his problem what happens next year, the next 5 years. It's like realistically, he could care less, right? It's not his problem. It'll be somebody else's problem. So if I'm Dubas and my job's on the line this April and May, or maybe just April, then I'm going for it. I'll trade draft picks. I'll trade Marlies. I'll trade current Leafs. I'm going for it this year because I might not have the job. It'll be gone that quickly if I don't have some measure of success. That's what I'm doing if I'm Dubas.
Sometimes I find myself, given the fact that it's kind of not really a state of limbo as a Leaf fan, but you're kind of like, as we've seen before, the regular season obviously means nothing. The only thing that can keep up with it, the only thing that can come out of the regular season would be terrible, and that would be missing the playoffs. It looks like you're firmly entrenched in the 2 spot. So really, at the end of the day, there's not really a lot to talk about. We've regurgitated everything, and we'll regurgitate it again. The biggest day in prior to the playoffs for the Toronto Maple Leafs is trade deadline day, and the 10, 11 days before that. If you go in with this same roster and you don't shore up, and I'm talking about when you shore up, there's a lot of guys available. How you're going to get them, that's a different story. If you want Ryan O'Reilly, he's available. If you want Bo Horvat, he's available. If you want some other guys, they're the guy from Arizona, Chichurki. If you want they're available. There's a lot of guys available, Norm Rumack. The question is, can Dubas wheel and deal and pull this off? And we'll know better by the trade deadline what this team looks like. Because again, if you go into the playoffs against Tampa Bay and you bring back this exact roster, you're just setting yourself up, man. Win or lose, you're setting yourself up for me to come on the day after. And you know me, I don't like to swear, man. I'm a pretty common, cool guy. I'm an intellectual savant, as a matter of fact, right? I don't like to get down and dirty, but I'll have to do it again 3 months from now. So you gotta reinforce the troops, Dubas. And as you mentioned, Norm, and succinctly so, I might add, that draft picks mean nothing, Kyle Dubas, to you. Guys like Knives, guys like Robertson, but Glashow, what? Nobody that's not Matthews, Marner, Nylander, Tavares, nobody means nothing to you except those 4 guys. That's it. So give up the house, the kids, the farm, draft picks, whatever, and pull an Anthopoulos and go guns blazing, reinforcements for a legitimate run at the Cup this year. Because just to beat Tampa Bay alone, you're gonna have to beat Vasilevsky, Hedman, Point, Kucherov, all these guys. You're gonna have to have a more assortment of weapons at your disposal than the current Leaf team has, both in the back end and up front. You need winners, man. You need winners. So if you need winners, you pick up the phone and you see how you can get Ryan O'Reilly to wear a Maple Leaf uniform. That guy's won a Stanley Cup, Norm. He's got a Conn Smythe in his closet. He's got a Stanley Cup ring. So he knows how to get the job done. So you find a way to bring him over, man. Well, and it's that simple.
Here's the thing, though, Billy, that's a little bit of a fly in the ointment, a little bit of a complication. I wouldn't say it's quite that simple, and here's why. To get the kinds of players you're talking about and improve in a few positions, like maybe in net and on the blue line, what a rival GM is. Let's be the rival GM. Dubas he's got a fire lit under his feet, they're in, right? It's like they know he better produce something this playoff year or he's done. So in that sense, he's a little bit desperate. If I'm one of those rival GMs and say, Kyle, all due respect, I love you, buddy. I hope you're successful and you keep your job. But, if you want Ryan O'Reilly, okay, whoever, let's like fill in the blank, okay, all these guys that could help improve the Leafs. I hate to tell you this, Kyle, but I'm going to need, I know I can't get Marner or Matthews. It's not even for a discussion. But, between Nylander and Tavares, I'm sorry, if I'm going to give you a guy that can take you to the promised land or a couple of guys, you're giving me someone who can produce for me now and for the next few years. Well, I guess that'd be more needed. But Tavares certainly, he's not like washed up or anything. So if I'm one of those GMs, I'm saying you either give me one of those guys plus some kids or draft picks, or forget about it. Like, why should they give away a great player and get draft picks? Like, who cares? And where are the Maple Leafs drafting? They're not drafting in the lottery spot. So a draft pick is like, he might make the team in 3 years if they're lucky. No. I want one of your, I know I'm not getting the top two, but your forwards 3 and 4, Tavares, Nylander. That's just the first part of the equation. That's what I'm saying back to Kyle, Billy.
Well, at that point in time, we don't know what the market's going to look like for a guy like Ryan O'Reilly. But here's what you do have at your disposal. You have your first round picks. You have Morgan Riley, in my estimation, to dangle, right? You got some young kids to dangle. Again, if I'm centering a deal, man, and I center it right around Morgan Riley, and Morgan Riley's a bona fide number 2 defenseman in NHL, and they don't grow on trees. So if you're willing to move him and get a piece back in return, a guy like O'Reilly, then you make that move. At some points in time, you got to look at the season in its totality, Norm. The Leafs played some of their best hockey without Morgan Riley.
Yeah, okay.
So if you play some of your best hockey without Morgan Riley, then at that point in time, in my estimation, he becomes expendable. And if we're going to talk about how valuable top 4 defensemen are, wait a minute. If that's the case, then Morgan Riley should demand the King's ransom in return. And every time Leafs want to talk about a top 4 guy, you're talking about, well, why devalue Morgan Riley? Morgan Riley's one of the 20 top defensemen in hockey, in my estimation. So you should get a King's ransom for a guy that signed multiple years and can be your number 2 defenseman and automatically fill your lineup. You're telling me Morgan Riley wouldn't look good in Vancouver?
Yeah, well,
those ways. You're telling me if you want to get a guy like Bo Horvat in return and a couple other guys, maybe a Luke Shen, you're telling me that Morgan Riley's not has a suitable value when it comes to an open market?
I don't know. It's hard to read the Canucks in terms of, like, obviously, that's like crystal clear. But in terms of, if I'm the Canucks, to be fair, if I'm the Canucks and I know he's gone, I'm saying, okay, yeah, Riley's in the mix, but I want to see what every other team who's got a shot or thinks they have a shot at the cup. I'm going to have a poker game. Let's see who the best player is that's coming to Vancouver. That's how I'm playing it.
Absolutely, I understand. So in other words, if you're Kyle Dubas, that's why they pay you money. That's why you're in the general manager. You got to find a way to get it done. I don't care. You got to harass a guy. If I'm in Dubas' spot, you know what I got to do? I got to call a guy at 2 a.m, 4 a.m, 6 a.m. I got to bother him. I got to call him again the next day. I got to get him sick and tired. I got to bamboozle every GM I can, man. Call him, trick him, lie to him, kiss her out. I don't care, man. I just got to get better. That's my job, is to make my National Hockey League club and my roster better. And I got to do whatever I can, man. I'll go and take a plane to San Jose and go find their general manager, take them out to dinner. I don't care what I got to do, man. I got to get my team better. And Dubas got to put all the stops to get his team better. Because if you go in with the same recipe again, you're going to have problems. Speaking of problems, I got one big problem. And again, this might be swear for the last time, for at least for this episode. But I don't know the man personally, so who cares really at the end of the day what he thinks or what I think? I'll tell you this, man. Jimmy Rutherford, man, I've seen you on TV a few times. You're an eloquent guy. But I'll tell you this, and again, viewer discretion. But I'll tell you this, Jimmy Rutherford, you're a piece of shit, man. You and your organization are pieces of shit out in Vancouver for the way you handle Bruce Boudreau. And Boudreau, by the way, man, hockey lifer, man, hockey lifer. And you know what he did in return? You embarrassed the guy. You pulled the rug from under him. You had him in limbo for 7 days. You announced that you were firing him, and you put the guy behind the bench. After 40 years of hockey, you clowns in Vancouver. That's how you treat people. That's how. And you know what? Here's the beautiful thing about Bruce Boudreau. He handled it with, you know what, Norm? Class and integrity. He didn't say boo. He didn't say who. He didn't say nothing. And there's never been. And we talked off air. This is as bad as what Ballard used to do to Roger Nielsen. Even worse, man. Disgrace for the Vancouver Canucks, and that whole organization is in the toilet. From the owners up to everybody else, you guys are a complete and utter disgrace. And you know what? You probably set up Rick Tocchet too to fail there, because Tocchet goes into Vancouver as the most hated guy, and he hasn't been behind the bench for a sweat yet. And you already set him up to fail. You guys are a disgrace. Jimmy Rutherford, you're a goddamn fool and a disgrace. Shame on you.
Well, I agree the treatment of Bruce Boudreau, and I known him for a long time. I mean, he was, I was a volunteer with the Marlboros, the Junior A Marlboros, OHL Marlboros, a long time ago with my friend Lajoie, who was the business manager, Roger Lajoie, in the 80s. And, I got to know Bruce when he started coaching, and he's such not only is he a nice guy, but, he can make a joke about himself, right? And how you give me the gears about my long questions. I was interviewing once or a couple of times on the Fan when he was with Washington, and he would also give me the gears about the length of my question. That's because I know the guy, right? He's a fun guy, and he can have a laugh. And I remember I was talking with him. You know that he was on the ice for the Slapshot movie, right? Because he was playing in the minor. Well, he was playing in the minor leagues, but he was recruited, and if you watch the movie carefully, you'll recognize his face. And he was like joking around. Again, he can make a joke about himself. He says, well, the big difference between me in that movie and me now was, well, I had hair back then. That's what I'm saying. He's a cool guy. He's down to earth. He doesn't think he's a big shot, even though, he's a long-established NHL coach. He's the sort of guy, and that's why I'm not surprised the Vancouver fans took a shine to him. It was like, he's a lovable guy. He's like a real human being. He's genuine. And you're right. I'll bet you, Billy, I may be wrong, but I wouldn't be surprised if Rick Tocchet called him privately and said, look, I feel for you. I don't like the way this has been done, but I need to take the job because I need to take the job. I can't believe that a hockey lifer like Tocchet would be in any way pleased about the way, I'm just saying, it's my opinion, I could be wrong. I can't believe Tocchet would like anything about it. He probably was disgusted, but you need to take the job, you take the job. I'll bet you Tocchet was completely disgusted by the way they treated Boudreau.
You would hope so, right? Again, we can't know. We're not privy to the inner workings of what goes on behind closed doors, obviously. So you would hope so. Again, there's not, and again, without bringing Rick Tocchet into the conversation, he's just taking a job. So we can't fault him for anything in terms of how this is played out. But you would hope that conversation's been made. You would hope Tocchet would take the time. And I wouldn't be surprised if he did, because no matter where he's been a class act, an honest hockey man, an honest hockey player. And obviously, you got to have a sour taste in that organization. And if you're going there, man, it's like dating a bride, right? And she just, like, I don't know, she left her husband for you. I don't know. You look at her, all right, that's great, honey. Let's go out. If she left her husband for you, she's going to do the same thing to you one day, man. So Tocchet's around wolves. If they're going to do that to Boudreau, then more than likely they're going to do that to you too down the road, unless you put some W's on the board. And again, it doesn't matter if you brought back a Leigh Paquin or anybody else in Vancouver, Lord. You can't win with that hockey club. You don't have enough pieces. You don't have enough players, man. You think Boudreau was the problem? No, Boudreau's not the problem. Jimmy Rutherford, you're the problem. Your owner's the problem. That's the problem. It's not Brucey Boudreau, who you put under the map. You criticize his tactics. You blindside them, and then here's the worst part. You went on TV, you made all these public comments, and then you went on TV and you said, if I've said anything to offend him, I apologize. Bullshit, man. Your actions speak louder than words. Stick your apology up your cornhole, man. We know what kind of dude you are, man, and you can't fool us. You can't fool this guy, man. You might be able to fool that ham and nigger Norm Rumack, that naive soul from Syracuse University, Jimmy Rutherford, but you can't fool this guy. I'm from the streets, pal. Take your phony apology, stick it in your ass, and before you know it, pal, you're going to get canned from Vancouver, too. You're going to be on the unemployment line as well, man. Mark my words. What else? We got about 4 minutes left. What do you want to touch on, Norm?
Well, I'll just say one other thing about Vancouver, and I'll bet you, again, they can't say so publicly, but I'm sure some of their all-time greats, and, they've got quite a list, too. The Sedins, Pavel Bure, go right down the list.
Stan Schmiel, man. Stan Schmiel, pal.
Say they've had a lot of star players over the years, I mean, they haven't won a cup yet, but they've certainly not been lacking with star players. I'm sure every one of their alumni watching this unfold is absolutely disgusted. I mean, Gabby, I think till a few years ago, still held some records. Gabby, that's Bruce Boudreau's nickname from when he was playing. He had some records in the American hockey. He was a prolific scorer in the AHL. The Leafs called him up for a playoff series. I think it was 76-77 against the Flyers. He was on like a fourth line. Not playing right, but he was called up. But he was a prolific goal scorer in the American Hockey League. And, he was a hard worker. And then he paid his dues to get to the coaching. So I'm saying he's the sort of guy that I'm sure across hockey is universally loved, but especially Canucks alumni. I mean, they're no different than the rest of us. It's like, okay, if you need to fire him, fire him. But, call the guy in the office, have a chat, and you hire your next guy and just get it over with and get it done and treat him with some respect. I don't think there's a hockey player anywhere for any team that looks at this and isn't disgusted. I don't care what team they're with, especially if they're with the Canucks.
Here's the deal. You don't treat human beings like that, let alone good men. Let alone good men like Bruce Boudreau. And there's not nobody in sight that's got a negative thing to say. You don't treat them like that. And you know what? Shame on the Canucks. Shame on everybody involved in that fiasco. And you know what? Really and truthfully, I don't know if I speak for. I just wish the worst for you, Vancouver. I wish you guys don't win another hockey game. I wish Jimmy Rutherford gets fired, and I wish you all guys get what you deserve, man. You embarrass somebody else, and I hope you go 5, 6, 8 years, man, without a sniff of the playoffs. Really, and that would be kind of nice. Speaking about no slips in the playoffs, we got a few minutes left. Obviously, trade deadline is coming in terms of the NBA. We've been over this before. Is anything you've seen over the last little while? The Raptors 21-27 coming off a win against the Knicks. What are you doing? What are you doing, Norm? You holding out hope? You got any kind of chance? I'll ask you this. What's the Raptors' chances on a percentage scale to beat the Milwaukee Bucks in a best of 7, or the Boston Celtics? What chance would you give them, hypothetically?
The maximum chance I would give the Raptors against the Celtics or Milwaukee right now, the maximum is I'd say, okay, I'm not a wagering guy, okay, but even if I was, I'd say, okay, I'll pick the Raptors to win one game in that series. And that's like, even then, I wouldn't be surprised if they got swept. I mean, and that's why I think Masai, kind of like when they won the title, he took a big gamble moving DeMar DeRozan. That was a big gamble, right? The guy who wanted to be a lifelong Raptor, right? A fan favorite for obvious reasons. Masai, if the idea is just to get into the playoffs and be able to do something, you need the stuff of a blockbuster, meaning you have to give up some of your most popular, some of your best play. That's the only way, because obviously their bench, they don't have a bench. Well, not realistically in terms of scoring, right? If they want to turn the corner, because even Masai must be wondering, is like, okay, we've been doing this rebuild. We got some good players, but they seem to be treading water, and maybe even that's an exaggeration. I think they need not only to try to get a playoff spot or to be better for the playoffs. I think they need like a reset, like a blockbuster deal. Do you agree or disagree?
It's such a difficult predicament that the Raptors are in, because on one hand, you're still basking in championship glory, which gives which gives some leeway to guys like Nick Nurse, to Masai. There's still remnants of the champagne bottles popping, the parades. You still got that caveat in your back pocket if you're Masai and Nick Nurse to play. How much longer can you play? Are you closer to the bottom or closer to the top, or are you right in the middle? These are the tough questions you got to ask yourself. And if you look at the Raptors on an individual basis, you have pieces. You have Siakam, who's played unbelievable this year. You have Van Fleet, who's a above average NBA basketball player. You have Trent, pending free agent. You have OG Anunoby. You have pieces. But the $1 million question is, how do you add pieces without subtracting? And are you better or are you closer, right?
All that.
You're not going to get a substantial additions to make you championship worthy without giving out a piece of your nucleus, right? Guys like that don't exist. And the Kawhi Leonard, as you mentioned, was a one-off. It just happened to be a guy in a disgruntled spot that can change the face of the game. Those things happen, you know what, once in a lifetime. That opportunity for Kawhi. Will any other opportunities like that exist? Can you get a Gilgeous-Alexander out of the situation in OKC? And even if you did, would Gilgeous-Alexander make you a winner, make you a championship threat? The jury's out. If I'm Masai Ujiri, I don't know what to do. I wouldn't know what to do, because there's a small percentage of me that still believes in the roster that I have. But again, it is a complicated situation, and frankly, I couldn't give you an honest answer. I can see it going in any of two directions, three rather. You can either stand pat and see where it leads you. You can try to make some trades to get better, or you can blow it up. Any of the three would make sense to me, and I wouldn't take issue with any avenue, because there's not one that really stands out to me. And if it doesn't stand out to a guy like me, man, that is as sharp as they come, Norm Rumack, then obviously it's a muddled situation. Muddled indeed.
Yeah, well, muddled, but yeah, I think they need, as much as they've got great players everybody loves, they need someone who's like, take the team on its back. Someone gets in your way. I don't mean literally knock them down, but you know what I mean? Someone is like, creates fear in the other team. I mean, fear kind of like, God, we can't stop him.
Yeah.
God, that guy's like a game stealer, a serious. They need.
Where do you find those guys? Those. You know what they might consider doing, man? They might consider hiring a couple extra guys, like a guy like Marty Roberts as like an advanced scout. Maybe go out. Yeah. Maybe even a guy like Joe Pesek. Maybe hire a guy of his caliber to do some advanced analytical scouting. I don't know. You do whatever you can at this point in time. But again, the Masai championship window and the blessings that come from it gotta last, I would say, 5 years. This is year 3, right? So he's got another couple years. And again, he's bought time. He's bought time for himself with that championship. But again, he's on the back half of the good feelings, right? It's sooner or later, Raptor fans are going to get impatient. You take this year, no problem. If you come back and do this again next year, you know what? People are still going to get impatient, right? It's just a matter of time. What have you done for me lately? Only goes so far with the championship. Sooner or later, Raptor fans are going to demand a winning product again. And again, I trust Masai, and he's demonstrated his ability to produce. So if you give him the benefit of the doubt, but he's on the clock, no doubt about it, Rumack. Speaking of on the clock, it's 9:04, man. This time has just flown by. It's flown by. I'm drenched in sweat here. You can't see. My nerves are shattered. I'm still shook up with the Dallas Cowboys. And again, for those of you just tuning in, I don't know, you might rewind it and watch the beginning of the show if you want to know how I truly feel about certain members of the Dallas Cowboys. And again, it's going to be a long, long, long off season, man. Go Leafs, go, Rumack.
All right. Well, there's always something to talk about. We'll find more. And folks, first of all, thanks to our great sponsors again, COSA, Standardbred Horse Racing Association of Ontario. Go to your favorite track. You'll have a great evening, guaranteed. Not only the horse racing, the dining, the whole experience. And Nikki, the king of carpets. You need carpets redone, refixed, new carpets, whatever it is. Nikki is the king. Not only that, he's a hell of a nice guy. A loyal sponsor to us. And yeah, even if he's a Habs fan, so you're a Leafs fan. But if he makes your carpets look so excellent, what do you care? No matter what sweater he likes. It's like he'll make your carpets in your home better. That's what counts. So give Nicky a call, and he'll take good care. Like I say, you meet him. He's a sweetheart of a nice guy. So, folks, thanks for tuning us in. Billy and I are always grateful. You may agree or disagree with what we say, how we say it, but one thing's for sure, you're not going to be bored with this program. That's a guarantee. Take to the bank and put a mortgage on that. You won't be bored. So thanks for tuning us in, and thanks to Jordan LaRoche, our great producer. We're with you every week, Facebook Live or on repeat, however you like it. Have a good night, a good week. God bless. Thanks so much. We love you.